Welcome to Professionally Messy. I'm Becca Ferguson, and if being a professional means hiding your burnout and pretending you're fine, well, everything is falling apart, yeah, I'm out. This is a space for every neurospicy, overwhelmed therapist doing real emotional labor in a system that's barely making room for being human. If you're exhausted, overloaded, and still trying to hold everyone else's world together, pull up a chair. I'm telling the truth here. Hello, and welcome to Professionally Messy. I'm Becca. I am a therapist and a business coach. I own the therapy office, which, yes, it is themed after the Office TV show, and authentic coaching. This is the very first episode of Professionally Messy, the podcast slash video blog thing that I'm trying out. And I say trying out because I'm literally just diving in head first. And I decided to start this channel because, like, honestly, as a therapist, there's a lot of pressure in the therapy world. We're trying to pretend that we're fine. The world is on fire. Everything is shit. And honestly, we're absolutely not fine. Like, I mean, there might be some therapists that are fine. I read the comments. um, but I digress. Anyways, but like I want this to be a space where we can talk about the real stuff. Where our nervous system can just kind of honestly crash and exist, and where we can be honest with each other, where we can support each other, where we're not judging each other in the comments, where we're like existing as humans in this space. Although I am a therapist, I'm not going to be an expert in this space. I want to figure it out with you and be a person in real time with you because that's really important to me. And when I built authentic coaching, I wanted to show up as me in a space authentically and tell you, like, hey, this is who I am, this is what I'm doing. And as I grew and like started putting things out there, I was like, holy shit, this is like really vulnerable. Some people took it well, other people did not. But I can either like take a couple steps back and like stop doing those things, or I can keep moving forward. So today I'm going to keep moving forward. And if you're here figuring out in real time, then you're in the right spot. So, okay, this is something that I tell my clients all the time. And something I'm going to tell you right now. So take a deep breath with me. I'm sorry, dang it. And okay, with all that being said, that was my little introduction, I guess. Let's go ahead, let's dive in. And I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to tell you what happened this week because, y'all, this is some crazy shenanigans. Since authenticity is a big value of mine, this particular stuff that happened over the past week, like, this is what happens when your values get louder than your fear. And this is how you can show up. So let me give you a backstory real quick. For those of you that don't know a lot about like what I do in the coaching atmosphere and like why I'm doing business coaching and things of that nature, let me tell you a little bit about what that looks like. So authentic coaching was something that I built when I like kind of on mistake, if I'm being honest with you. But it was honestly really needed. And I found myself kind of spinning my wheels. I'm an ADHD homie, and as a late diagnosed ADHD homie, like honestly, beginning of 2024 is when I first got diagnosed. And at the beginning of 2024, when I first got diagnosed with ADHD, it was something that was a lot for me to take in. I was really struggling with understanding all of the pieces and parts of my life, like what was anxiety and what was it that I was told was acid reflux. Like, I cannot even begin to describe to you, like, the amount of things in my life that I've been trying to figure out, and then getting that ADHD diagnosis was like, "Oh my gosh, this is why I've been spinning my wheels." And learning the neurodivergent parts of me just gave me a little bit more permission to kind of open up and say like, "Hey, it's okay that you're doing these things." And as a person that's been like told for a significant part of their life, like, "Hey, your stories are too long," or "The way that you describe things are too much," or whatever, like basically any way that people would give me feedback, the word "to" was in front of it, TOO, you know? So, like, I've had this drilled into my head my whole entire life, like, Becca is "to" something, and it leaves me feeling very unheard, and there's a lot of pain that goes with that. So, like, I wanted to make sure that at some point in time, like, I'm figuring that out myself, but also, like, that was playing a huge part of my business, you know? I was spinning my wheels with the things that I was doing, the systems that I was creating. I'm just like buying stuff to buy stuff because I don't really understand what's happening. And then it's like, is it something that my clients are going to understand? Is it something that like is making this simple for me? Also, like, why are other therapists able to take time off and I don't feel like I can take time off? Because I'm finding myself after every single session telling my clients, like, sure, just like message me if you need something. But then I'm also like, I am so available all the time. And that was something that, like, being that available and being that open was also contributing to like this big gaping open like, "Oh my gosh, I'm here all the time." Like, I always have something that's going on, you know? So, then it's like I dive into the coaching realm and I start seeing all these other therapists that are offering all these different products and things. But it's so easy the way that they're offering it. Like, just start offering intensives and like your life is going to get a lot easier. Sold. Okay. Like I'm here for that. Like I will 100% start offering intensives if it means I can cut down my caseload and it means that I can just like only offer intensives. And if I only have to do like 4 or 5 intensives a month to make my monthly bills, are you kidding me? Like, I'm 100% going to do that. Like, that was something that made so much sense to me as a therapist and as a business owner, as like anybody that was in existence. Like, work less, get paid more. Okay. But the thing is, like, there was a whole other piece to that, and that was the marketing and finding the right population and how do I speak to them and how do I let them know that I exist? And then like, is this a population that I want to work with? And how does this like fill me up as a therapist? Because intensives are a lot of work, and like they can also burn you out in a different way. And so, as an ADHD homie, I'm thinking to myself, like, okay, what are some resources that I need working with the population that I love, which I found myself working with a lot of other therapists. And I really just loved diving in with that population, mostly because that population was kind of grasping for like their own space where they could vent and know like, hey, this isn't going anywhere. Like this is locked in. And I wanted to provide that. I also was looking at things from two different lens. I was looking at it like, we've got our own personal traumas, but like we also have a business to run and we have to have some practical shit that's going on. And as a therapist, I understood both. And I was willing to just like be raw dog and honest. Like if I'm being real with you guys, like that's what I was doing. But then it's like I found myself really constricted with like I wanted to also promote their business. And I wanted to like do all these things, but I'm like, oh my God, I'm their therapist. And I like HIPAA and all of these other things. Like I'm like, oh my gosh, like there's so many things that like I wanted to do. And I just wanted to like go like I basically like wanted to go to their basketball game and like start cheering really loud when they would do something really well. And then it's like, hey, I can't because like I'm your therapist. So um it's like I wanted to be able to take a step back and I wanted to reevaluate like what is best for me? Like where do I feel like really heard and also nourished as a therapist, and that was working it with like religious trauma and cult recovery because that was really that's also something that I love working in, which like is a whole other story that we can dive into. But then it was also working with like neurodivergence inside of that area. And I love working with women that have attachment inside of those populations. Women inside of like religious trauma and cults like tend to have like an attachment to the leader, essentially. Like that's what we're going for, you know, and it's so like difficult to unpack, like the guilt and the frustration and shame and everything that goes with it. And it's like we've got purity culture, we've got all this shit. And being in the South, like we even have like the politics that go into it. And it can get so frustrating. So like I ended up making that a lot of my specialty. Now going into the election, like I easily got like burnt the fuck out because working with acceptance and commitment therapy, I practiced a lot of flexibility. I was seeing a lot of clients that like therapists normally wouldn't see because I try and like I see a lot of therapist I see a lot of clients that would normally like trigger other people, and then all of a sudden, like I have shit going on in my own life, and then like I'm the one that's like seeing all the people that people are getting triggered by, and I'm like, oh my God, like now I'm triggered, and so like where was my outlet? And I'm obviously like just getting overwhelmed and like don't know where to turn. And throughout my time as a therapist, the number one thing that stayed consistent is like I can't keep a high caseload. Like no matter where I was at, no matter what I was doing, like I would try and go between 20 and 25 and that was too much. And then it's like I would be at 15 and I'd be like, okay, when are we going to dwindle down? But then part of me trying to expand and go into a group practice or open a group practice was like, how can I cut this back? Like, how can I get back to doing the things that I really love and figuring out what I love? And it wasn't working with clients that had religious trauma. It wasn't, you know, just doing cult recovery, even though I love those things. It was teaching because that's the number one thing that I do inside of sessions. It was taking the resources that I create and being able to flop them, not just for my own use, but for therapists that I started working with originally inside of my niche. And I'm like, this literally goes back to the beginning. So I'm like, this is what's solving the problem. The problem that I had in the beginning, which is like, your homegirl is ADHD as like all get out. And like, you know, we have workbooks and worksheets that people can buy on Etsy. Like, we have all this stuff, but, like, in all of those spaces and places, how many of those people are being like, "Here's this thing, now let's figure out how to actually adapt it for your brain." And so, like, that's what I wanted to do for me and for my business is, like, I'm I was just really tired of being a neurodivergent. It was like the metaphor that I use with a lot of my clients is that I guess my, Gen Zs now call it an old movie, but which is really sad. But they call it old movie when I reference it because it's whatever, it's fine. I'm fine. But Apollo 13, where it's like that one scene, like you can't fit a square peg into a round hole. And I'm just like, I'm looking at that and I'm thinking to myself, like, I mean, that's so true. Where it's like, I'm just this neurodivergent homie that has been trying to fit into this neurotypical space for a really long time with all these resources that are fed to me. Like, here's a good resource, but this is the resource that worked for me. And I'm trying to essentially say, like, here's a resource that I had, but let's figure out a way that it works for you. And so, like, that was what I wanted to do. I mean, I feel like that it made sense for me, for my brand, for the things that I struggled with. And that's kind of where I came from. Now with this, it anytime that I like would market stuff, there would always be two sides that I would get with this. Like how I talk and how I express myself don't always like come across super easily. If I'm being honest, like if I had to compare myself to anyone, um, like my husband's gonna kill me for this, but like I feel like I'm a little bit of like a blunt Kylie Kelsey with like um a very soft like well actually I'm my cat, Lucy, which she's around here somewhere. That's why I have the second office chair. Because she will bug us the whole entire time if she doesn't have the office chair next to me. She's very elusive. Um, she doesn't like anybody except for me, so that's fine. But I feel like I can be very blunt, I can be very straightforward. I also can be sarcastic. It doesn't come across really well when it's typed out in a comment. I try and be funny. I try to use emojis. I try and do all these things. But what I learned over time was like posting in Facebook groups or posting in like these therapist communities or things of that nature. Unless I'm having like a direct phone call or conversation, people don't really get to know me. And it was making it really difficult to want to post on social media. Even when I would have these direct conversations, I I found that, like, if people right off the bat just did not want to know me and they wanted to make an opinion about me, they would. And it was not only, like, heartbreaking to discover that, but it was something where I was like, I I mean, like, yeah, of course, I want everyone to have their own opinion. Like, I don't wanna control that. But also, it's just like just talk to me. Like, I feel like I'm a reasonable human and I could definitely have a conversation. But the thing is, like, I can't have those conversations if people are scared to have them. And I was noticing I was doing the same thing where it's like, because of these, you know, quote unquote community Facebook groups that we had with other therapists, then it's like, we get this automatic view that when we give feedback to another therapist, we're just gonna basically get shit on by that therapist because defensive mode goes up. And so I started taking a break from posting in these groups. And I feel like I kept going down this like rabbit hole where I was like, oh, this is really affecting my business. I'm not posting in these marketing Mondays. I'm not interacting with other therapists. I'm not going into my local Facebook groups and telling people what's going on. But it's like every single time I would post in one of these places, it's like this reaction would happen in my body every single time I check a notification. And I'm like, oh my gosh, did someone leave a comment? What's the comment say? Like, are they going to like say something negative or whatever? And so I did avoid it, honestly, because like I didn't like that feeling inside of my body. I also was trying to figure out if avoiding it was something out of fear or if it was something that was healthy for me. And I I didn't know which one it was. So it felt just like really unsafe. As someone that is justice oriented, I knew that engaging in those conversations either were going to bring like conversations where, A, I'm not going to convince someone over Facebook in the comment section to believe something different, like, period, point blank. And like, I, I can invite them to a conversation offline, but I know that that rarely ever happens. And I was like adding so much work onto my plate. It was kind of intense, if I'm being honest with you. So I just like, I'm like, what am I doing? Essentially. So last week, what happened was I decided to push myself anyways. I was doing this Black Friday sale for a couple things. I decided to bundle some stuff and Um, one of them was a workbook that I had created for myself. That's usually how I do a lot of my resources. So, like, I'll create things for myself. If it's helpful, then I'll flop the resource. I'll get rid of my own branding. I'll make it like branding that someone else can use. And then I will just flip flop it and like put instructions for everybody and say like, hey, this is how you use this particular XYZ. And that's how a lot of my resources are. And then whenever I update it for myself, I update it for everybody else. So I knew that like I always knew that like posting my stuff essentially, like the resource works because I use it and like it's helpful. My brain is happy using the resource. And I'm an ADHD therapist. So I'm like, this is awful. But like I don't like I always get stuck on the marketing. Like, how do I market this stuff? And then I go down this rabbit hole of like spending forever trying to figure out how to market it that I never actually market it. I know, I know, I know. It's the rabbit hole that I'm in. And like, I swear, I can't tell you how many panic attacks I've had over this. But it's fine. And like being someone that's in this, it's like I could go down the other rabbit hole of like, I never expected to go through this, like as a therapist, but like, it's fine. So, anyways, so I decided to post in a particular Facebook group last Wednesday. There was a part of me when I posted that was like, maybe just from what I'm seeing, this is a needed resource. And I will reach a group of people like that actually need this. So that's kind of what I decided to do. So I did that and I was pretty excited about it, honestly, because I got really good feedback immediately, and everyone was just like, oh my gosh, like, I love this." And, um, a lot of questions and a lot of interaction, and Wednesday night on the by the time I was going home, like, I had all these ideas swirling in my head of, like, how I could even improve things and make it better, and I was just like, "Wow, this is incredible." Like, I got home, it was around, like, 7 o'clock, and I just remember telling my husband, um I told my husband this, and I told the support group that I'm in for other therapists. I told them both. I said, like, "I feel invested in." Like, I was having a pretty shitty day, if I'm being honest with you. Like, Wednesday the holidays are not really good for me right now, if I'm being honest with you. Like, I am going through a lot of things in my personal life, and usually holidays are significant reminders of that. And so, like, I I really struggle during those times, and I was trying to, like work through that, but it's like I went into work on Wednesday thinking, like, "Man, everything is just gonna go south really, really quick." And, like, it didn't. Like, it was good. It ended up being a great day. And, like, I was blown away. I even was, like, posting on my Instagram saying, like, "Wow, I'm so thankful, like, this is what it feels like to be embraced by a group of therapists that show you, like, that they can stand up for a resource that they need." Like, I felt great. Um, and, like, I honestly was really just looking for connection with other neurodiverse clinicians, and it was important to me, you know? So, yeah. Then, like, 30 minutes later happened. So, we Wednesday before Thanksgiving was not just the Wednesday before Thanksgiving. The Wednesday before Thanksgiving was also Stranger Things Day. So, I had been, like, waiting for this day for the past, like, what, 3 years or something like that? And, we were pretty pumped about it. So, we decided when I got home, like, "Let's put some chicken nuggets and some fries in the air fryer, and let's get ready. It's Stranger Things time." So, 7 o'clock, we were ready. But then all of a sudden, like, I I told him I told my husband, I'm like, "Okay, I've been getting messages and comments and stuff like that all day. Let me pop on one more time before we sit down to eat, and, like, let me check and make sure there's no more questions, and then I'm gonna shut my phone off for the night." And so, like, as soon as I pop on, I'm receiving a message, and from the moderator of the group, or one of the moderators of the group, just, like, saying that, like, my post was deleted essentially because I didn't answer the membership questions, and I was like, "That's cool. I'm confused, like, I joined this group years ago, and I must have been invited, and so I kinda don't know what's going on, like, that's interesting." Followed by a phone call from Connecticut on my cell phone, which is not published anywhere, like, I've checked. And then I also got a text message and an email from the founder, and a voicemail from the founder. And, I mean, it was intense, I'm not gonna lie. Legal threats and the whole 9 yards. It was, like, a lot of confrontation, and, like, I was thinking to myself, like, the first thing that came to my mind was like, did I actually do something wrong? You know, like I need to get that clarification. Like, did I actually do something wrong? And there was like a thought in my mind of like, I'm not going to deal with this tonight. Like, this is honestly like something that I'm going to put to the side. But like the notifications wouldn't stop. And so like they just kept reaching out. And I was just like, I'm so confused on what's happening right now. And so it really honestly hit me in a way that I didn't expect. And I really wasn't ready for that kind of confrontation. I I know that my nervous system was on a different kind of high where I was just like, I feel validated. I feel invested in. I feel like people want to see the work that I put out there. They need this resource. And then I have someone else that's telling me something different where the only resources that can be available are resources that are approved by them, resources that are um, approved by them, and I think the word was s it's not important. I'm gonna take the high road. Anyways, so, um, it was interesting to say the least, and after that phone call, the conclusion was, like, I have to remove that particular modality and any mentions of it from the workbook, which was interesting because the workbook in and of itself was not like a breakdown of any of the protocols. It wasn't giving away any secrets or anything like that. Um, it was just a tool. It was a tool for neurodiverse clients and clinicians to use so that way after a session, like therapists can turn off their phones and disconnect and actually have office hours and know that like they gave an added value resource to their client so that way they can just be like, hey, um this is the resource. If you need anything, then check out this workbook. Like this workbook has a lot of stuff until our next session. Here you go. And it's so just like grounding exercises and journal prompts and things of that nature. And I was marketing it towards the intensives that I was doing. The amount of money and time that I've spent to promote a modality, um, it's just like heartbreaking to see the lack of collaboration. Of course, like we all have things that we've done that we want to protect, but you can't be the only one that has done anything helpful. Other people are allowed to see something that's helpful inside of this. Like that's why we have collaboration. That's why we have supervision. That's why we learn from each other. Like if we stop learning from each other as therapists, then like our field is going to die. Period. Like I learn from my intern a lot. Like that's part of it. That's that's why we do this. If we can't learn from each other and we're solely dependent on like my way is the only way, then like gosh, that's terrible. It's a lot of gatekeeping, honestly. And I'm not here for it, which is why I offer the resources the way that I do. So, but yeah, it just hit me in a way I didn't expect. I remember, like, obviously, sitting on the couch, had my chicken nuggets on my fries. I said multiple times during the phone conversation, like, it is 8 o'clock at night and it is the day before Thanksgiving. I am not having this conversation right now. I'm not I'm not fixing anything right now. Like, I'm not doing anything right now. Like, I need you to, like, have your expectations very clear, you know? And although that was something that, like, I really did set as a hard boundary, it didn't change how things were, like, swirling around in my mind as a human. Because I'm just sitting there on my couch, and it's like my body starts reacting. And I kn I know that, like, I think at one point, like, I told my husband, um, because he's eating, and I'm glad he did because he needed to go to work, like, almost immediately, um, and I know it was hard, but, like, I just know that in that moment, for me, some of the things that came up were just like my adrenaline was all the way up, and I had finally felt, like I said earlier, like I felt invested in. And I hadn't had that feeling in a while. Um, it wasn't something like investment for me isn't just money. Investment for me is time. Investment for me is about like someone seeing the value of the things that I can create, seeing the value of the things that I put out there, whether it's my words, my content, my just like the space that I create for people. And I think it's just like everything that was coming up for me as a human was like, who do I have to talk to about this? Like, where do I start? And I think like, you know, the hardest thing for me in this moment, one of the like the hardest actually I was going to say one of the hardest things, but the hardest thing for me in this moment was when everything started like meshing together. Every single problem that I was having, every single like thought that I could every single intrusive thought, the visceral reactions inside of my body, and I just like I just had like this whole collapse. And I remember the sentence that came out of my mouth was like, I don't even have a mom to talk to about this. And, the backstory, like, quick sentence, like, I did go no contact with my parents at the beginning of this year, 2025. And I think there are two perspectives on that. Like, you could go no contact with your parents and then you would have a mom to talk to. But it goes back to that investment piece where the thought that goes into my head is like, I'm not going to be listened to. And I wasn't ever being listened to. Like, what would the advice be if I was talking about the things that were going on in my life? Like, well, you got yourself in this situation. You should have done this or you should have done that. And with my parents not understanding how survival mode works, then it was just like, I didn't want to talk about it anymore. Like, I, I mean, there's no education that's there. There's no willingness to learn. It's just like, you should have known better. With every single thing that I did, it was always, you should have known better. Take responsibility for everything that you did. And I don't think that they necessarily understand that the way that my brain works is that I do take responsibility for every single thing that I do every single frickin' day. And I work my ass off. And that collapse that I felt of like, I just want a mom that loves me was not only just like grief of someone that's still alive, but it was like this realization that like I did at one point have one. And today, hopefully I post this today because I'm trying to. But today is December 1st. Um, and I had someone that was like a mother figure in my life when I was younger in high school, and her name was Miss Ashball. She was my high school history teacher, and um, I used to call her essentially like every single week when I was in college. After I graduated, I would go to her room most mornings when I was in high school before school started. We would talk a lot about the things that I was struggling with. Like she was essentially like the person that knew a lot of the things about me from a deeper level, and she always listened to everything that I had to say. And today's her birthday. But she passed away last year. And like, oh, it sucks. So, um, I just remember sitting there on the couch. I just remember being like, ugh, I want Miss Ashball too. And like, she was such an incredible woman. Like, I thought at one point in time during this panic, I remember saying, like, I can't even think about the things that she would tell me anymore. Like, you know, I just remember like I remember being in that moment being like really alone and scared and being like, I can't even remember her voice. Like, what is it that she would tell me? Like, I remember our last conversation that I had with her and like her validating me. And I remember her telling me, like, hey, I actually remember what happened to you. Like, I remember how difficult it was. I remember the things that you went through. Like, it's absolute bullshit. Like, you know, and like to have your high school history teacher cuss when you're an adult, it's fucking badass. But like, also, it just was like in that moment, I'm like, what would she say? You know, it was sucks. But like, she used to tell me this when I was in college, and I didn't go to college for like psychology or anything like that. I went to college for radio, television, video, and strategic communication, which I know is just like absolutely weird and off base and all that kind of stuff. But again, that's a whole other episode. Like, oh my gosh, whole other episode. But there were several times that I struggled in college too, and she used to tell me like you just gotta fake it till you make it. And like I just like I thought about that, and that was just like pounding into my head. Like absolutely pounding into my head. And then later that week on Friday when I had my therapy session, like my therapist said the same thing at the end of our session. She was like, kind of have to have that like fake it till you make it mentality. And I was just like, did you just like channel my history teacher? Like I didn't tell her that, but I'm like thinking that inside my head. And then I'm like also thinking to myself, like, Taylor Swift has been screaming that inside of torture poets for the past like 2 years. And like, although I'm not, realizing this during this panic attack and everything like that, like I'm realizing this later in the week and all that kind of stuff. It's just like I keep thinking about this thought process of like faking it till you make it. And I'm asking myself this question now. I started asking myself this last night, but I'm asking myself this question now, and I kind of want to like bring it back to the surface. Like, I'm kind of curious, like, in some places, like, is faking it actually authentic? And then, like, is faking it actually authentic for me? And it's like, what am I faking? Like, who am I trying to impress? And like, who am I trying to prove something to? And why am I bending myself around a system that feels wrong? And like, why am I selling something that I've never really felt aligned to? And it's like, I think that in and of itself is like something that's like kind of cracked something open for me because authenticity for me isn't about being vulnerable. Authenticity is about being able to say the things that I feel are like true to who I am and in a moment without having to like over explain myself essentially because like I am I'm like I'm really tired. I've lived a lot of my life like you know in these spaces and places where people have made decisions for me. And I think like that is part of the problem. So it's like growing up in this super evangelical culty type kind of atmosphere that like I left, but like also I was forced to leave that environment. It wasn't my choice. I look back at that now and I'm like, well, fuck. Like, that was like, I'm glad I left, but like, would I have had that realization on my own? And like, how long would it have taken me for me to have that realization? Like, how long would I have stayed attached to the person that was like leading that? And like, that's a lot of power for someone to have. And then I'm like also thinking like as someone that's built two businesses, like I'm kind of refusing to support anything that's like over controlling or gatekeeping or shaming. Like, how do we support someone inside of our boundaries? Of course, like we want our shit to sell. We don't want people to like come in and just be like, you know, come into our spaces and be like, hey, let me market all of my shit, right? But it's like, how do we lift other people up while also promoting our own stuff, like through collaboration, right? Like that would make the most sense. But it's like, also in a way, like, does that mean that your business doesn't thrive? Like, I think that's a lot of the struggle here where and I hear it a lot from therapists. It's like you see all these big brands of people that are making money inside of like the therapy world. And it's like, do those people promote other people like through sponsorships? I mean, like how much you got to pay to play, And it's just like, I think that's like, I mean, it's business. And therapy inherently isn't really business. It's like people's brains. And I think it's just like it's a different rule. It's a different rule. And like I think that's where things have been so messy. So it's like I really honestly I care about like autonomy and agency for all of my clients. I care about values. I want like anything that I create to reflect that. And I want people to know about that. So it wasn't what I planned to do, but this weekend, like, I rewrote the whole entire workbook and every single resource that was attached to that modality because honestly, I'm tired of promoting other people's stuff that doesn't align with my values. And like, I'm tired of just assuming that every therapist wants to collaborate. I'm tired of assuming that other businesses want to help therapists. So, like, I know it's not what everyone expected. And I know that people want resources for specific modalities. And you know what? Honestly, rightfully so. But I think also it should be something that anybody that creates any sort of modality or intervention really look into and listen to the people that are talking. And when they say, like, well, I support people, well, listen to the people that are talking. Because if your immediate response is defensiveness, and like, I'm in couples counseling, so I'm learning. Defensiveness is not just like arguing. Defensiveness is like you're arguing to win, right? Like, so think about that, right? But if you're like, I need to get my point across and I need to make sure that they understand it, I think it's time to take a step back and ask yourself if that's actually winning. Because in my eyes, it isn't. It's not inclusive. It's not culturally competent. And culturally competent is about every population, about every diagnosis, about every question, and not just saying, like, yep, it'll do that. It's about understanding actual concerns that come into play. So, everything that I'm creating, it's like, you feel like it doesn't cover it? Guess what? Like, I'm gonna work really hard to figure out like how the hell do we create it to be something that makes sense for you? Because like I'm really tired, honestly. I'm kind of exhausted. So it's just like it's a lot. It's a lot. Being a therapist inside of this world is a lot. There's been times where my black and white brain has been like, stop being a therapist. Like, you've been burned so many times. And then there's another part of my brain that's like, how do you make the difference? How do you do this? And I just like, oh, I don't know if I have the answer to that yet. I think like every single time I meet with someone, I get a little bit more towards the answer. I also get a little bit more permission to like pivot when something feels like wrong or like something of that nature. I also feel like I'm giving myself more permission to walk away from systems that are hurtful or harmful. Like I deleted the Facebook app and Facebook Messenger app off of my phone because I was constantly feeling urgency to respond to every single thing and I was getting overstimulated. And so I'm just like, I'm trying to become more aligned with my own values, and authenticity is a huge value of mine. It allows me to say the things that I wasn't allowed to say. And it also allows me to choose the things that I want to say. It allows me to be the person that I want to be. And I think also like therapists deserve to like choose themselves, like, you deserve to crash out when you need to crash out. You deserve to be built up when you need to be built up. Like, it's it's excessive, it's a lot, but, like, I'm here for it, and, like, I would love to walk you through it. So, okay, I was planning for this to be, like, 20-something minutes. It's not, but here's the first episode of Professionally Messy. Thanks for joining me, and I hope that you join me in future episodes. So, I don't know what the next episode is gonna be about, but I'm sure it's gonna be messy, and I'm sure it's gonna be fun. So I will see you next time. Okay, bye.